Hi and welcome to Sturm und Drang. In this video we are going to dive deep into the intricacies of international law and find out that, as surprising as it may sound, some of the most solid legal arguments in support of the notion that Israel is currently committing a genocide in Gaza come from a very unlikely source: the German government. It's not exactly a mystery that the German state has, in the last centuries, displayed a remarkable familiarity with the concept of genocide. And while the German government has, at least performatively, expressed regret and has claimed to have learned from its dark past, its stance on the current events in Gaza proves otherwise. Since South Africa brought Israel in front of the International Court of Justice, accusing the Zionist state of violating the UN Genocide Convention with its destructive campaign in Gaza, German officials have maintained that the accusation has, quote-unquote, no basis whatsoever, and have accused South Africa of weaponizing the convention for political reasons. If that wasn't enough, they also announced multiple times their intention of joining the case in front of the ICJ on Israel's side, an announcement that was enthusiastically received by the government in Tel Aviv. But more than 1 year has passed since then, and the German government has so far failed to act on its own words. Now, considering Germany's record of unrelenting support for Israel, one should wonder why the German government has so far not kept its promise to perform what is mostly a symbolic act of solidarity to its number one ally. Well, there is a very good reason for that. But to understand why, some additional context is in order. The International Court of Justice is the United Nations tribunal, whose duty is to settle disputes between UN member states. This includes disputes regarding the application of the Convention for the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, usually known as Genocide Convention, which Israel is currently accused of breaching through its ruthless campaign in Gaza. According to the ICJ statute, UN member states have the right to intervene in the proceedings in support of one of the two parties, just like Germany intended to do in support of Israel. But what does this intervention entail? As international law scholar Stefan Talmon explains, quote, "Interventions under Article 63 of the ICJ statute are strictly limited to observations on the construction of particular treaty provisions in question in a case. The intervening state is not entitled to address or to refer to the merits of the case. That is, it is not permitted to address matters such as the existence of a dispute between the parties, the evidence, the facts, or the application of the treaty in the specific case. Germany, thus, will not be permitted, for example, to submit that Israel did not have genocidal intent or that certain statements by Israeli officials were not indicative of genocidal intent. All Germany can address is how the court may, in general, establish genocidal intent or how particular provisions of the Genocide Convention are to be construed." End quote. In simple terms, all that Germany can do is basically to provide the court with its own interpretation of the Genocide Convention. The problem is that Germany has already submitted one such interpretation when it intervened in another case, currently under examination by the ICJ. On November 15, 2024, while Israel had been exterminating Palestinians in Gaza for more than a month, Germany, along with other Western countries, joined the Gambia in its case against Myanmar, currently accused of committing genocide against the Rohingya people. This was basically a PR stunt to try to refute the accusation that the West cares about international law only when it suits its geopolitical interests. In the words of the German Foreign Office, quote, "We ask others to condemn Russia's war of aggression as a breach of international law and to protect the international legal order. And now we support the Gambia in order to enforce international law and to strengthen it in the fight against human rights violations." End quote. Well, this backfired epically. In its declaration of intervention in support of Gambia, the German government supported a broader interpretation of the Genocide Convention, using compelling legal arguments that, unfortunately for them, can be very well applied to the situation in Gaza. It is important to note that a broader interpretation was also supported by Raphael Lemkin, the legal scholar who theorized the concept of genocide and the mind behind the UN Genocide Convention. Germany's argument in this regard is that when it comes to genocidal intent, the deciding factor for establishing the crime of genocide, the ICJ should, quote, "adopt a balanced approach that recognizes the special gravity of the crime of genocide without rendering the threshold for inferring genocidal intent so difficult to meet so as to make findings of genocide near impossible." End quote. This is a reasonable position. What is the point of having a convention on the prevention of genocide if it's impossible to apply it in practice? But how should genocidal intent be determined? First of all, the German government states that reports from UN agencies, quote, "must be regarded as having particular probative value in establishing elements required to demonstrate the existence of genocide, including the facts that allow the court to draw inference of specific intent." End quote. Sounds great, considering that one of such reports, released by the Special Committee to investigate human rights in the occupied Palestinian territories, and in turn based on the work of numerous UN agencies and investigative bodies, concluded that Israel's actions in Gaza are consistent with the characteristic of genocide, since, according to the report, Palestinians are being targeted as a group. This should not be surprising if you keep in mind that, as the German government duly reminds us, quote, "the court has already recognized that Article 2 of the Convention covers methods of physical destruction other than killing, whereby the perpetrator ultimately seeks the death of the members of the group. Examples of such conduct, recognized by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, include subjecting a group of people to a subsistence diet, systematic expulsion from homes, and the induction of essential medical services below minimum requirement." End quote. All the aforementioned actions have been committed by Israel on a large scale. The Zionist regime was intentionally subjecting Palestinians in Gaza to a subsistence diet even before October 7th, and has since then intentionally starved them. It has forcibly displaced 90% of Gaza's population and has basically dismantled Gaza's healthcare system, preventing millions from having access to basic medical services. In light of these facts, it is quite clear that even by Germany's own standards, Israel's genocidal intent is hard to deny. And if we really wanted to beat a dead horse, we could also highlight the fact that in the same document, the German government stresses that particular weight in determining genocidal intent should be given to the targeting of children, or, in general, of the reproductive capacity of the affected group, both of which have been particularly evident in Israel's actions in Gaza. While, despite all the evidence, the German government maintains that there are no signs that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, they have so far failed to provide any legal argument to support their position, and, more strikingly, they have also failed to support Israel before the ICJ. There could be different reasons for that. Maybe it's because they want to avoid the legal paradox of having to simultaneously support two contradictory interpretations of the Genocide Convention before the same international tribunal and lose what little credibility they have left. Or maybe it's because, despite claiming the opposite, they know that South Africa's case before the ICJ has a solid legal basis, and they don't want to compromise themselves more than they already have. Regardless, it should be clear at this point that Germany's official position on the Gaza genocide, aside from being despicable and contradicted by the evidence, is completely unprincipled and disproven by their own, quite compelling actually, legal arguments. A further proof that, in their blind support for the Zionist entity, Western countries are dismantling the very fabric of the international legal order they claim to uphold, and on which they base their moral legitimacy. And that was all for today. If you watched up until this point, I really thank you for your attention. The legal analysis in this video was based on an article authored by Professor Stefan Talmon of the University of Bonn, which you will find with all the other sources in the script of this video, available through the link in the description. Since his article was published more than a year ago, I re-examined his arguments in light of the new evidence who came up since then and offered my personal spin on it. If you found this video insightful and you want to support my work, I invite you to like this video, leave a comment, and more importantly, to subscribe to my channel and activate the notifications. This way you can help my channel grow and counter YouTube's censorship, which targets me for my unwavering support for the Palestinian cause. If you did not find my arguments convincing, or if you utterly hated my video, please let me know why in the comments. A big thanks to the people supporting my work, with a special thanks to Ludo for helping me with the new setting. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.